Omi was sleeping, my son, he was sleeping, and I got the call from Tanmay and Sati, and he's saying that, you've got through.
Arati.
And I remember I had frozen, and he had, when the interview happened, they said this is a residency, and I have to give them credit for this. They said this is a residency. Even the people from Bombay who are getting through cannot go back home to stay because it's very important for the culture of AIB First Draft that everybody stays together because, even after your day's classes have ended, the whole idea is that, you're sitting, you're writing, and, you're stuck in your scene, and then somebody else helps you to crack it, and you help someone. That whole sense of community was a very important part of First Draft.
So Arati, I'm so happy that you're here. It's one of those days which I was really waiting for since we spoke about, this recording. You and I have been working together for like about 3-4 years.
Yeah.
And through our collaboration as your manager and, working with a writer who has just started out in the industry, I learned so much about the industry and so much about the people while I was working with you, right? So it's been a tremendous journey. I miss those days,
I know. I mean, I miss picking. I remember we used to have so many times when I didn't even have much to say and I'm like 5 minutes and वो कभी 5 minutes में बात नहीं करते. It would pour over to 30-minute, 40-minute calls.
Yeah.
जहाँ पे in the 40th minute you're like, अच्छा, what was this for?
Yeah.
And then you're like, अच्छा, I just wanted to give you an update. It could have been a message.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but these things are what make relationships amazing, right?
Exactly.
Because it's not transactional to just, I want to talk to you about this. You discuss that and you hang up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are those relationships also. You need to have some of them because you don't hit it off the ground with everybody.
That's true.
But when you do find that, you should just, I feel it's great to hold on to your tribe.
Exactly. And you can't pick and choose some of these things, right? They just happen on their own, right? You find your tribe and the tribe wants to find you also, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool. What I do want to start with is, okay, I understand your journey, but for our listeners, I would love for you to share exactly how you started, when you started, because it's not been too long. If you could just start from that, it'll be great.
So actually, it has been long. The writing chapter has been relatively shorter.
Got it.
I started working almost 15 years ago. And I joined a production house which is now defunct. It was called Plan Man Motion Pictures. We worked on some amazing films. We worked on Do Duni Char and Mithya and 3-4 films with Rituparna Ghosh. We were a team of just 5. Which meant all of us got to do everything. When it was my film school. Right from, when the story is like a log line, or not even a log line, but an abstract idea in the writer-director's mind. Wahan se lekar to see the film's release, we got front row seats to that.
Yeah.
And even got to work on everything. So I have lifted film print cans and taken them to labs. One of the films that we shot with Rituda was a black and white film. और तब Kodak के पास those black and white का stock was not easily available.
Got it.
So even sourcing stock for tomorrow's shoot was you have to make sure it's there.
Oh, wow.
To sitting for the sound mix sessions, to sitting for marketing, because we always made films which were smaller. We had to get a little more innovative in terms of how to put our film out there. We didn't have budgets like the big films. We had to often find collaborators, so either sell the film. I've gone to Cannes Film Festival and held small screenings of our completed films and sold small territories like South Africa, Poland, where your film will release in 3 theaters, 4 theaters. I've assisted in direction. I've assisted Saurabh Shukla on a film. Production, film festival, everything, So for at least 6-ish years, I did everything.
This was 6-year period.
Then I thought that, okay, I want to maybe now see what I'm more interested in. I straight up knew that I did not love production.
Got it.
So, but at least rule of elimination se ek cheez hat gayi. So okay, fine. So what else? Yeah. So then I went to FTII and I did their film appreciation course. That I think was really a watershed moment in terms of my learning. 6 weeks staying on campus at FTII, 9-10 hours of lectures by amazing faculty and watching 2 films every day, 7 days a week for 6 weeks. You're at the NFAI theater and you're watching like Rashomon and the rules of the game and all of that. It was amazing, right? Uski baad, I was fairly clear that I want to focus on writing and direction. After which I assisted Saurabh Shukla on the film. And after some years, the production house shut down.
Okay.
So it was like, I was just getting started on what I want to do, and now you have to like go back to figuring things out. But you know how it is, right? It's just life has a plan. And then after my son was born, he was about 6 months old, and that's when First Draft happened, which was the second watershed moment. Because after that, from being also a writer, you're almost apologetic sometimes because your writing is not getting you anything in the beginning, right? And that beginning can be anything from 6 months to 6 years.
Yep.
So you're like, मैं बोलूं भी कि नहीं कि मैं writer हूं? Because then the next follow-up question everyone has is, okay, have you written anything that I know of? And it's like, no.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, so this person thinks I'm useless.
Oh.
So मैं ऐसे जिसको कुछ नहीं होता बोलते मैं writer हूं, right? So because of First Draft, I went from being a part-time apologetic writer to being a full-time writer who finally did not need side gigs to sustain a writing career. Wow. So
how long was that period again?
Needing side gigs?
Yeah, like you spent 6 years working with different people in different capacities only to realize that you want to towards writing. And then from that moment till
about 3 to 4 years.
So you took 3 to 4 years to transition.
And I took a lot of digressions, right? The company had shut down pretty suddenly, and so it's not like it was planned.
Right.
It just happened out of the blue. So a couple of my friends and me, we started a seemingly very unrelated job of a design company. So we had a design company where we did marketing solutions. I did copywriting because I'm like, I can write, but I mean, you need completely different. But you need to do something. I was not going to just sit.
Yeah.
We did that for 2-3 years. One of my friends, she has a very successful PR company.
Okay.
So I would write like ghostwrite articles. I would write copy for marketing. I would write press releases where मतलब एक page की press release का per press release rate, because it all added up. At that point, any money was good money. So I had about 4 years of this before First Draft happened, and I was fine. So when that came, I held on to it with everything I could.
Yeah.
Because I know how hard it had been. और वो सब hindsight में ही hard लगता है, because when you're going through it, you're just so busy firefighting and staying afloat. You're not realizing that, oh, I'm going through a hard phase. No, you're like, it's only in hindsight, oh my God, how did I do that, right? Yeah. So yeah, it was about 4 years of this transition before First Draft happened.
Yeah, let's talk about this for a minute, right? Because this is one of those things where whenever I meet younger writers, in fact, I'm personally also dealing with some of these questions in my head where when I also started writing last year till today, and whenever I meet even younger writers who are starting out, there is this primary questions, okay, how do I focus on writing full time? How do I manage my income? Because if you have moved cities to be in Bombay, there's rent, there are so many other things that you have to take care of, right? And writing as a craft, you need to spend time nurturing it, learning it, How did you strike the balance between being able to focus on developing the craft for yourself? Because I understand you did not have before AIB, you did not have a professional writing course as such, right?
Yeah.
So you're also learning as you're going along. How did you strike the balance between focusing on craft, managing your expenses, and these other cakes?
So my big advantage was that I was not paying rent in Bombay. So that is one huge pressure that's really off you. But apart from that, the other challenges still exist. We were married.
Yeah.
We had a son. And that's a discussion for another day. But kids are really expensive to raise.
Oh no, we should talk about that. Yeah.
So even if your child is just 6 months old and at home, it's expensive to keep a 6-month-old also healthy and happy and well fed.
Yeah.
So I think that I cannot really speak for people who need to move to Bombay, because I would be guessing how they can do that. But just by common sense, I feel that you should have at least 6 months to 1 year of money in your account to give
Okay.
you some kind of confidence, because you have to assume, and most likely it's true, that nothing is going to really land in your lap immediately. You have to keep time and buffer for things to finally like start falling in place. Also, in the beginning, most of the writing that you do, nobody pays you for it.
Yeah.
No matter how much we want to get paid, even if it is token payment, most likely you're not getting paid for that.
Yeah.
So a lot of my learning of how to write came from reading screenplays. So I would download screenplays, which of course is so easy and everybody can do, to just understand the grammar, right, of how, and different kinds of films are also written in different ways. So I remember the first time I wrote a screenplay, I had like 3 lines of dialogues and like full page of just description. It was like 10 lines का एक paragraph. It was basically just like a novel, right? Because I had not read a screenplay before that. वो जब मैं पढ़ रही थी तब I realized that what was I doing? Like I was really just writing like in prose form, you know. It is not screenwriting language. And in terms of money, even now when you start getting work, the money is always sporadic. You will have 1 month where you're getting like 2 payments, and then nothing comes in for 6 months. So learning how to manage your money as a freelance screenwriter is a lifelong hustle. It is, right? Because you just have to figure it out. So I think that jab paisa aata hai, you know, my dad told me something really wise, very basic but really wise, and ever since I heard it, I've been living by it. He told me that a lot of people make the mistake where they do income minus spending is their saving.
Okay.
But income minus saving should be your spending.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because he says that if you're earning 100 rupees and you're going to, of course, you first do the important stuff, right? Like rent and this, that. You still have 40 bucks in your account. And you're like, you know what? I deserve an ice cream today. You know what? I deserve that. Not that you don't deserve it. But it's very likely that by the time the month has ended, you have 3 rupees remaining and you're like, acha, abhi 3 rupees kaun save karega, you know? And then you don't save anything.
Right.
He's like, instead, even if it's a small commitment, that out of 100 rupees of your investment, of your income, you're going to save 5 rupees every month, no matter what.
Yeah.
So when 100 rupees comes, just take out your 5 first. He said, automatically you will learn to manage in your 95. Because if you don't take off that 5, 10, 20, whatever is your goal, you're never going to end up saving.
Right.
So I have been living by that, and it has really changed the way I look at income management.
Yeah.
So I feel that helps.
No, that's
That
so
helps.
true. That brings me to what you were just talking about. You being a writer, you're out there traveling the world. I would love for our listeners to get a peek into how do you manage those expenses? How do you plan for that?
I realized very early on that I love travel too much, and my sporadic writing income will not sustain my ambition for how much I want to travel. So, and I have a friend of mine who's equally passionate. She's got nothing to do with writing. She's like a private banker, you know, like completely, we come from very different worlds. And so about some years ago, what we started doing is we started an SIP that is only for travel. So it's like a little travel fund.
Nice.
Every month that money goes into a mutual fund and it's set aside, and then we try to do one trip together every 12 to 18 months. So say 1.5 years. And 1.5 साल में ऐसा लगता है कि okay, sufficient money is banked.
Right.
And if nothing, at least your land cost is taken care of in that, and then with your what is in your bank, you pay for your tickets. It just suddenly makes travel so plausible.
Yeah.
Because when you're just thoda sa like taking out a few thousand rupees every month, you don't even realize when it's gone.
Yeah.
You know, It's like, okay. So after 1 or 2 months, you're mentally prepared that, acha, okay, this is the first of the month and that SIP is going to go away. So then, like my father said, you manage with what remains, right? So, yeah, we are very focused and very structured towards our travel ambitions. And I would really suggest that if you like, and it could be anything, right? For me, it's travel. For someone else, it could be something else.
Yeah.
Like really just set aside money.
Yeah.
Because very often we think, jab paise aayenge, tab I'll do this, that doesn't happen. Because you never have enough of time or money or mental space, or, like you should feel the comfort that, you know what, suddenly 15 days have opened up. Oh my God, I can do a short break.
Yeah.
You don't have to go and do jugaad for money then.
Yep.
You're like, okay, I've been saving up, wo to hai na. It's a big thing off your chest, when you know that you have, even if it is just 50,000 ka one trip, 40,000, having 50,000 free upfront is not always possible.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So
SIP is my answer to how I manage travel.
And I can imagine that just taking these breaks, doing something for your soul, you've been planning for at the back of your head, must really uplift your spirit when you're in between projects, recharge your batteries in terms of, getting more ideas, whatnot, right?
Yeah.
I think it's so structured in its approach, right? Which brings me to some of the things that we always talk about, right? How the world outside has such a misconceived perception of how artists and writers are, right? And I know that you have such a structured, not only a structured approach, not only towards traveling and managing your expenses, but also towards managing your time as a writer. Let's talk about that for a bit.
The managing time bit?
Yeah, managing time, what it actually means to be a writer from the inside, right? Like if somebody's just entering this world, what do they feel? How should they approach the misconceptions about being an artist in this industry?
Yeah. One of the biggest fears I had before I turned writer was, and I think almost everyone has, is you feel you have a finite number of stories in you, right? You feel that with your life experiences, I can say these 5 stories really well. And what am I going to do after that?
Mm-hmm.
Which connects me to the travel bit. No matter at what age you start writing, you draw from your life. And very often we forget that you need to have lived a life to be able to eventually pour it down on paper or onto a story. So these holidays, that feel like holidays, are just not breaks or the recharge button or the reset button. They are also it's your life, right? It's eventually going to translate it onto paper once it changes something in you. So a lot of people feel that writers should be, first of all, not ambitious about money, which I feel is not cool. Because ऐसा लगता है ना कि अरे writer है यार, मतलब why you don't need like a fancy life, or you don't, तुम तो गरीब artist. It's not true, because all writers don't want to be garib artists. And if you are not the garib artist stereotype that people expect you to be, you're a fraud or a sellout, or are you really that,
Yeah.
Which I feel is kuch bhi. It's not true, because you can be both things at the same time. We've been culturally told that if you're an artist, you should not be chasing money because it corrupts the art. I don't think I agree with that. So, first of all, you should get rid of that guilt. If you feel like you want to be a writer, but you also want to have a good life, you can have both. And you deserve to think that you can have both. Managing time is always a fight, I think. Everyone has their own set of circumstances that they come from. For me, it is, I have a son. So, the day he was born, I had accepted that till the last day of my life, mom guilt is not leaving me. It's going to
What
be
is
there.
mom guilt exactly?
That whatever else you do, you feel I could have been spending time with my child instead.
Oh, so you feel guilty about not doing that?
It happens. And also, you are when you're at work, you're expected to be a person who has to pretend that they don't have a child, because you have to be there completely and 100%. And I get it, you're supposed to be committed to what you. And when you're at home with your child, you're expected to that, oh, you did not have anything else before this. You did not have a work life. You're not coming after 11 hours of being in a writer's room. But you're supposed to completely only be 100% committed, full-time mother. Some days you can swing it, some days you can't. So for me, the time management problem challenge comes from this, from trying to be a present parent and being a writer and everything else that you are, right?
Got it.
So,
sorry, just one question over there. Is it something that you face alone, or is something that your husband faces as well?
This
feeling guilty of not being able to spend time.
Oh no, he does too. He also does, because he's an actor, and when he's away on shoots, sometimes he's away for 10 days and you can't control your shoot dates. Those 10 days might overlap with his exams, with our son's exams. They might overlap with his annual function, which he's not able to come and watch. So he goes through like equal parts of that guilt. So I feel mere case mein the challenge is to raise a child while trying to have this life. In someone else's case, it would be some other set of challenges. Very structured approach did not work for me.
Okay.
Like if I tell that, 8 to 10, I'm going to write and I'm not going to allow myself to lose focus, and it did not work for me because, I just felt so much pressure to be productive in those 2 hours. Especially if, you have like a very pressing deadline. And with Abhi, with my husband, he also has something really important that day. Like Murphy's always at work, right? So we have that same thing going on. And then he's like, Acha, theek hai. This 1 hour with great difficulty, I have squeezed it out. I'm going to be here for that 1 hour. But after that 1 hour, it's a hard stop. You have to come because I have to leave at 3 o'clock. So, 2 to 3 ke beech mein, there is so much pressure on him. I'm like, oh my God, he has taken on so much on him. He's sitting there, baby. I have to write 3 scenes. Like, how dare I not write 3 scenes?
Yeah.
Aur phir kuch nahi hota hai. Because you're under so much pressure to like make use of that time.
Yep.
So I realized that being very hard on myself didn't work for me. It might work for some people, it didn't work for me. So I started giving myself like 3-day-ish deadlines.
Okay.
I did not set daily deadlines. Because if I told myself that acha aaj sham tak I'm going to finish 5 scenes, by the time I write 3 scenes, there's pressure on me to write 2 more. Then either I will write anything or I will not write anything, and then I'll still feel bad that I did not meet my target for the day. With 3 days, it just helps me to be a little more flexible, that if you're having half a day that's bad, you're not feeling it, and then you get another half a day that's of like supreme productivity, it evens out. So in terms of time management, I do that also because there are times when you're doing multiple projects.
Yeah.
So switching between genres, even mentally, is hard. Like suppose you're writing, in the morning you're writing a comedy, but in the afternoon you're writing like a murder mystery. It is a switch. So I try to not do 2 projects in the same day.
Right.
Like if I have 2 projects going on, Monday ko I will only do A, Tuesday ko I'll do B, or Monday, Tuesday I'll do A, and Wednesday, Thursday I'll do B, depending on how I'm feeling, on which stage of writing it's at. Because usually in screenplay format, when you're at the screenplay stage, the more flow you get, ek saath, the better it is for me.
Got it.
So if I get like 3 days continuously on one at the screenplay stage, it just flows more easily.
That's interesting.
The plot breaking bits are harder for me. Because when you get stuck on something, you're so stuck, even if you're going to sit over there for 3 hours and think about it, nothing's going to happen. At that stage, I feel it helps to switch. Like go to something else and then come back. Because when you
do something else in terms of a project?
Yeah, in terms of another project.
Oh,
or yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So I really like how you have a certain level of structure, but it's also a bit fluid.
Yeah.
So it almost sounds to me like there's a little bit of planning that goes, say, on week basis at least, where you're setting weekly targets, giving yourself that buffer time as well. If you were to just think arbitrarily, how much time do you spend in planning your weeks and your projects versus how much time do you spend in actually writing?
I don't spend a lot of time in planning because now I have figured what system works for me. Until I arrived at that system, it probably took me longer. But now I spend 1 hour on either Saturday or Sunday, in which I plan for the week or 2 weeks ahead.
Got it.
If I have planned for 2 weeks, the following weekend I'll take stock and see if it needs fixing. And if I have, say, a submission deadline of the 15th, my deadline to myself is 10th or 12th at the most. So that I have those 2-3 days to read the whole thing again. Because if my deadline to myself is also the 15th, then I'm not comfortable with it. Then I feel like, have I dotted the I's and crossed the T's? Have I made typos? Oh no, that scene didn't work. अरे वो dialogue ही नहीं change किया. वो सब होता है फिर, you know. So when I do that, so it used to be harder for me to ask for little more time for deadlines. But I realize actually ना हफ्ते का फर्क पड़ता है. So if somebody is saying that I need it on the 15th and you tell them, can you please give me till the 22nd? Mostly, unless there is a huge production pressure, that nahi, you know, like we are already on the floor, to alag baat hai. But if it's like how usually writing rooms progress, people usually don't mind that.
Got it.
You know, so it's better to get yourself that extra week or 5 days or 3 days, whatever works for you, than to just say yes to the 15th and then put yourself under like crumbling pressure to try and deliver it. So it took me some time to get there, but since I've gotten there, it has become just mentally far more relaxing.
Yeah, so you have a little more control over how you can plan your time.
Yeah, and then writing remains a joy, you know.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it becomes this chore, and then I'm like, then why did I do it, you know? मतलब मैं फिर banking ही कर लेती ना. मतलब I had that choice all those years ago.
Yeah.
I chose this because I like it more. अब वो पसंद भी अगर नहीं आ रहा है, so then why are you like doing it?
No, that's so true. And I think for writers, it's only few days in a year when you see your work come out on screen, where you're seeing your name on it, and there's a different joy that it brings. But those are just a few days in a year, of sometimes across a few years.
Yeah, years.
But your time is going on day-to-day basis, spending the, just doing the grind in terms of being a writer, right? And if you don't enjoy the process, then it can become really take a toll on you.
And like Sati said, right? Like Satyanshu, he used to tell us on the first day of first draft, he said that अपने दिमाग से ये भ्रम निकाल दो कि आप artist हो.
Yeah, he said,
right?
Yeah, that's
and
so
he's
good.
like that when you will look at yourself as an artist, I mean, and you will allow yourself the whims of artists that you have heard and that are folklore, but actually you're daily wage workers, right? रोज आपको मतलब पेन घिसानी पड़ेगी. You will have to write every day, whether you have a commission project, you don't have it, you have a deadline, you don't have it, you have to sit down every day and write.
Yeah.
You know, no matter how crappy that scene might turn out to be, but you have to write.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Which takes me to your experience at AIB.
Yeah.
Satyanshu Singh, I believe, was your mentor, leading you through those, I think, 6-month program. Was
Yeah, 6 months.
And those 6 months were focused writing weeks where you're spending time with 30 odd people from across the country.
No, we were 10 of us.
Oh, you were 10 of... Oh, wow. Okay. So you're 10 of you spending all the time together, not only going through lectures held by Satyanshu and other people, but also spending a lot of time writing and reading each other's work, right? So let's go through that experience. Let's start with, what did it feel like when you got in, when you got that email that you're in now?
When that when that invitation to applications came for first draft, I hadn't read it yet.
Oh, wow.
Abhi read it, my husband. And my son was born in August and this announcement came out in December. It had been 4 months. I did not know what the hell was going on in the world outside, right? And he told me, he read that and he's like, hey, I think you should apply. And I said, do you not see this little thing that I'm holding? He's like, nahi yaar, ye sab tum mat socho. It's not important. You just apply. And if you know Satyanshu, you know that the application process is not for people who are not serious about it. So it was a very intense application process. We had to write scenes without dialogues and then same scene with dialogues and like all kinds of things, which after very long, when I was putting in that application, I'm like, oh my God, I have missed this. How much fun this is to sit and write.
Yeah.
And at every stage when I would send in my entry and I would come and tell Abhi ke, bhej diya. And he's like, hey, tumko milne wala hai. You want to get through. I don't know what you're worried about. So finally, when I got that call, I remember Omi was sleeping, my son. He was sleeping. And I got the call from Tanmay and Sati. And he's saying that, you've got through. And I remember I had frozen. And he had, when the interview happened, they said this is a residency. And I have to give them credit for this. They said this is a residency. Even the people from Bombay who are getting through cannot go back home to stay. Because it's very important for the culture of AIB First Draft that everybody stays together. Because, even after your day's classes have ended, the whole idea is that, you're sitting, you're writing, and, you're stuck in your scene, and then somebody else helps you to crack it, and you help someone. That whole sense of community was a very important part of First Draft. And I had told them that if it was any other life circumstance, I would have said yes. But Obi was too young. I was still breastfeeding him. I said, there is no way I can do. So then Tanmay had asked me, so if that's a deal breaker, then what would you do? I said, then I'll have to choose my son over anything else because it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So when they called me up to tell me that I'm selected, they said that they had thought about this a lot. They said that we have people from Bombay who are going to move in to the house despite having a house there. It will be very unfair if we allow you to go back home, and we did not give that same choice to the other people from Bombay. But they also said that you have made it to our top applicants on merit. It will also be unfair if we don't allow you to come in purely because you are a new mother. So the slot was for, the course was for 8 students. They created a 9th slot for me. So they still selected 8 people and they created a 9th slot for me where everything is the same with just the freedom that you can go back home at night. But the same deadlines, the same, everything is the same. And they're like, if you need some kind of freedom that, today I can't come, and you ask for it and it'll be granted. But otherwise, koi lenient wo nahi hoga karke. And I was like, yeah, bring it on. No problem, right? And then I remember I got that thing and I went in and I told Abhi. I said, Abhi, I got in. And he's telling me, shh, Omi was sleeping. And I'm like, Arey, yaar, sacha. He's like, but I always knew when I read the application ka invitation, I told you you're going to get through. And I told him now is the hard part because it was a very intense course. I had to be there more than 12 hours a day. And we were trying to figure how to do it. And Abhi just said it so easily that main ghar pe baithunga.
Oh, wow.
And I said, it's really easier said than done. And he's like, no, but I've thought about it and I'm going to stay at home. He left everything. He was home for 6 months. When we would have lunch breaks at the course, I would go into the room and pump milk. And then Abhi would he would drive down from Bandra to Andheri where our classes used to be. And he would take those bottles and go back home. And so that went on for for 6 months we did that. Yeah. So it was hard. But that I knew what that meant to me because I told you when I was writing the application, I realized what I was missing. And then when the course started, it was just so amazing every day to be in that environment, which A, you have been really looking forward to, and B, it reminded me about who I am apart from being a mother. The first few months are so hard because you're constantly trying to figure that, okay, is this my life now? Is that all a thing of the past? And am I never going to be a writer again? And I had never really got a full stab at writing before that, right? I never got to be a screenwriter before that at all. And I'm like, there were parts of me that were like, is that never going to happen for me again, And then when that happened, I just and Satyanshu would tell me on some days, that ye exercise aapko nahi karni hai, to aap mat karo. And I'm like, no. I just took it on me, first of all, that I enjoyed it. And second, I'm like, you know what? If I screw this up, they're not going to take another new mother again. Because they're going to say, you know what, we tried last time, it didn't work out. And ye pressure mujh pe kisi ne nahi dala tha. Never did Tanmay say anything to me. Never did Satyanshu say anything. It was just self-imposed pressure that I took on me on behalf of all the mothers of the world. So I really did not want to let go of anything that I wanted to, that I could learn. And those 6 months were amazing. Like I said, Satyanshu said you have to write every day. So no matter how intense our day was, we had to write a 2 or 5, 2-page scene every night. So for the first 2 months, there had to be scenes without dialogues. And they're damn hard. They're really harder than you would expect to be, because आप कितने ही सीन लिख लोगे विद अ डेफ म्यूट कैरेक्टर ना, पहला कॉप आउट तो वही होता है कि अच्छा इसको, बट eventually then we realize that, after your first 10-15 lousy attempts at this is done, you start getting innovative. Then you start thinking, am I writing a scene where somebody is getting murdered because usme dialogue nahi hoga? Am I writing a scene where 2 people in captivity are trying to escape and they cannot talk but they can only gesture to each other? Uske baad, you really start writing. Once all your bad writing is done, all your gimmicks are done in the first few days. And then he started this thing where we would send our scenes to each other. So every day, I send my scene to you, you send yours to me, and the next morning we start our day with feedback.
Got it. So it's peer review happening at the same time.
Yeah. And then those pairings change every week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So एक हफ्ते तक I'm sending it to you, फिर एक हफ्ते बाद I'm sending it to someone else, and you're sending it to someone else.
Oh, that's interesting. So there's pairing that is happening and they would keep rotating those pairs. That's super cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So you'd get like different kinds of feedback from different people.
Yeah.
Depending on their strengths as a writer, right?
Yeah. And when somebody's written as a kuch bhi, and I'm like, listen, you had a bad day yesterday. That scene is not working. And yeah, I know. It's that.
Yeah.
So you learn to take feedback right from the first day of first draft. And then you learn, more importantly, to give feedback, right? We've spoken about this and how crucial it is to give feedback that works.
Yep.
Not just, sorry, didn't work for me. That's not helpful.
Yeah.
Right?
Let's take a pause here for a second, okay? Let's talk about this, giving feedback and taking feedback, right? And you're one of the most empathetic writers I know, one of the most empathetic human beings I know, who's just like, you're able to understand other people's situation. And if it comes from you, how one should take and give feedback, I can only imagine what it would feel like. Just spill it out. Like, how do you think feedback should be exchanged?
Usually, in terms of format, I think it is the sandwich approach always works, where you start with talking about what really worked for you in the scene or the story docket or screenplay, whatever it is that you're sending feedback on. Then you write down things that you felt could be better or are not as smooth as they could be. And then again, you end it with something that you think, with the things that were promising, things that are good, and things that the writer should stick to, no matter what else they try to change in that. That is usually the structure. But in terms of how you approach feedback, I always think that, first of all, you are sharing feedback on what's on paper and not to the person. Because very often when you are sharing feedback, more often than not, you know the person. So you have to, first of all, separate the art and the artist and take the art for just what it is.
Yeah.
Very often, suppose it's, say, a rom-com, right? I love rom-coms. I have to be very conscious that I'm not projecting what I love about rom-coms or what I want to see in rom-coms or where I think this rom-com could go. You have to keep that completely away from what the writer is trying to write. It could be a complete departure from everything that you expect it to be. So read it for what it is. Very often, because you are also a writer, you understand that, so many ideas are clearer in my head, but they're not very clear on paper. They're not working on paper. You get that normally. When you will read it, now you're like, अच्छा, इसने इसकी कोशिश की है. It didn't land, but if it lands, it'll be great. So then you make note of things like that, I think, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is where you were trying to go. It didn't completely go there. maybe you need to be a little more clearer about it, thoda sa on the nose. Sometimes things are too on the nose. And you're like, you know what, I think maybe you don't need to underline this too much, but also you can't tell the writer what to do. You can only say, this I feel worked, this I feel didn't work. And also I try to ask the writer that, would you like me to offer any kinds of solutions if I have? Because some writers like getting solutions, some writers do not prefer. They are like, you know what, you just tell me what's not working, I'll figure a way.
Yeah.
And some writers are like, no, give me ideas, yaar. You know, because I'm really stuck. I don't know what to do with this. So I ask that before I share feedback. फिर अगर मुझे solution कुछ आता है तो मैं अपने हिसाब से I give. And अगर the writer does not want, then I just throw light on the areas that I feel are thoda sa areas of concern, or I think that can be better. But essentially just that, and just try to not use, I really try to not use harsh words. Because writing is so hard, yeah.
It is.
It is so hard, and even if what you have read is not good at all, you know, even if you assume it's terrible, but that person has really tried, you know, and that is the best that this person could do right now.
Yep.
Which doesn't mean it can't get better. And very 9 out of 10 times when a writer has not written well, they know it. They already know it. So if you're telling that person, my God, it is terrible, it's like, oh my God, I am terrible. You know, very often they will try and interpret it that way. So I try to not use extremely negative words because it's so hard. Yeah. And that person is looking for help.
Yep.
Is not looking for a bashing session.
Yeah.
So try to
that
keep that.
Is so important, right?
Yeah.
The moment you walk into a feedback conversation or an email or you're just giving feedback, and if you're distinct, if you're able to differentiate between the fact that you're not here to bash the person up, you're not able to point out all the flaws because they probably already know, but you're here to help them, I think just immediately sets the tone for that entire conversation.
Yeah.
And that's so crucial, right? And going back to the sandwich theory that you mentioned, I feel like it's something that people try. You know, it's out there. Like, okay, if you're giving feedback, it should be like good, and then things you can work on and things that you find a potential in are good in again, right? But it often stands a chance, or it often stands a risk of becoming a gimmick. You know, where the good parts are extremely superficial, not well thought out, but the bad parts are the ones you're, you know, like, oh, they immediately stand out and they're like the detail parts. Like, so it's like a sandwich with like 10 different patties and a stained bread, you know.
Upar niche stained bread.
Yeah. So it forces you to, you know, not just empathize with the other person and their work, and like you said, like differentiating the artist from their art, but also forcing yourself to look at the good that they have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's so crucial that way. What I want to understand from you, having had a journey of about 4-5 years, I believe, where you took up writing to now you're here working with some renowned creators. Your shows are lined up to release in the next years or so on some of the biggest platforms in the world, right? You've had a chance to work with the topmost people in the industry. I want to understand what have been your biggest takeaways and learnings in this part of the world.
By collaborating with some of the people that I worked with?
Yes.
I've been very lucky that I've mostly gotten to work with people I have greatly enjoyed working with, and who are also really good collaborators. These are people who could very much say, ki, write what I'm asking you to write, because they have successes behind them. And it's very easy to say, haan, matlab uska, you know, he knows what he's talking about, right? Yeah. But are also like, you know, they're so vulnerable sometimes, like when they talk and they're like, मैंने लिखा है, but पता नहीं यार. Like, I don't know if it works. Largely it works, but पता नहीं, read it, you know. And you're like, हाँ यार, सबको feeling होती है ये. You know, no matter how big a hit your last show was, or it gave me such a quick, it eased me so much to know that everybody is winging it. You know, not to say कि किसी को कुछ पता नहीं है.
Yeah.
But to say that everyone who you feel कि इसको तो सब पता है यार, इसको तो थोड़ी anxiety होती होगी, इसको थोड़ी self doubt होता होगा.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, even that person is really wondering if he got it right this time, you know. So, I had the chance to work with Puneet Krishna on something.
Puneet Krishna, the creator of Mirzapur, right?
Of Mirzapur, right? And, you know, when before I met him for the first time, in my mind, I'm like, I'm meeting the creator and writer of Mirzapur. Mirzapur is a certain kind of a show. And I walk in there not knowing what to expect. And he is the sweetest person. Like smiles and like very ऐसे झुक के बात करना, like so much respect. क्या आइए बैठिए. And he's calling me आप. And I'm like, मैंने कहा आपने लिखी है मिर्जापुर. So he's like, why? But I'm like, brand match नहीं हो रहा है, you know, like obviously. So it's so it instantly puts you at ease because, and you realize that you don't have to be a certain kind of a person for your writing to be of a certain kind, right?
Yep.
Like he knew that world and he created that world. As वो थोड़ी पॉकेट में कट्टा लेके नहीं घूमेंगे ना. It is stupid. वो तो मेरी expectation थी. But you feel that he might be like a serious person, and he's one of the kindest, one of the funniest people I know.
Yeah.
And he would always tell me that it sounds like a cliche, but you know, it's amazing how hard it is to find people who follow it, than people who say it, that there are no bad ideas. And we would get talking, and he would have sent us his stuff, and he's like, in my mind, this might be, it works largely, but just anything you want to rip apart, you can rip apart.
Wow.
So in the beginning, you're still like, okay, maybe he's saying it, he doesn't mean it. But I mean, after discussions, so of course discussions intense hote hain, aur wo hone bhi chahiye, I feel, you know, because if you're trying to tell someone that why this doesn't work, that someone is going to defend. Because see, everything that I'm telling him now, he has already thought of it.
Yep.
Before he has put it on paper, he has gone through 10 different scenarios, and there is a reason why he feels that this is the best way forward. But in the 10 things that I'm saying, there might be 9 things he has considered. There might be a 10th thing he's not considered. It's important that he hears me out till I get to point number 10. Very often you never get to that stage.
Right.
He was just so patient, so collaborative. He never felt like I'm a junior writer. He meant it. When he said that there are no bad ideas, he meant it. And also, I did not feel ashamed to put out my bad ideas. Many times हम लोग खुद को इतना judge करते, we think of a solution and we are like, I'm going to sound so stupid if I say this, you know. It sounds so banal. But you say it, and you know, that the idea by itself may not work, but it may open doors to so many other conversations, right? And then those conversations could lead to other things. So it's amazing how some successful people can make it so much better for people who are still going through a different, a younger part of their learning curve, right?
Yeah.
Similarly, when I was working with Milind Daybyday on a show, like with him, I just felt like we were buddies catching up, and the writing was like a byproduct. It just happened on the side. I remember the first time we met, we did not even know what we are creating. We spent, and I'm not exaggerating, 3 months. We would meet thrice a week, and we only spoke about our families. Wow. You know, my mom moved to Bombay when she was 18, and you know, they had a house in Goregaon, and you know, then she had this friend. कुछ purpose नहीं था इस सब का.
Right.
कुछ purpose नहीं था. और फिर whatever anecdotes we found interesting in each other's lives, we started just putting them on a Google Doc.
Got it.
Thinking that, oh, maybe this will help with the characters back, or maybe then. At the end of 3 months, we had 25 pages of anecdotes.
Oh, wow.
And then we're like, okay, now maybe we have the clay that we are going to play with. Let's start giving it shape. And we still did not know. Are we writing the story of 4 friends? Are we writing the story of a family? Are we writing a sibling story? Are we writing a love story? We had no idea. Even after 3 months and 25 pages of anecdotes, we had no idea. Uske baad we started forming our characters. And uske 2 mahine baad, we finally had some shape of what we want to do. And uske aur 3-4 mahine baad, we had a pilot. We took like 9 months, 10 months to get to that point. Usually you're not given that kind of time.
Yep.
We were given that kind of time, fortunately. And also I realized कि actually तो ये writing होनी चाहिए ना.
Yeah.
ये process होना चाहिए कि it is growing inside out. It is growing from your character towards plot and structure and all the other things, instead of the outside in approach, which may work for certain kinds of stories, but for what we were creating at that time, it could not have been like more perfect. And what that helped us is by the time we got to screenplay, we knew exactly what language each character is going to speak, because we had apart from those 25 pages of anecdotes, we just knew these guys inside out. And the minute a suggestion would come na कि आप इस character से ये करवा दो, we would एक साथ say कि नहीं यार वो ऐसा नहीं करेगा. It's like those characters had become people, for us.
That's the place you want to be.
Yeah, and we're like,
exactly
no, he will never do that. He will do this. Or he will tell you, and we realize we're talking about him like he's a real guy. And it had become that because of the way we had, created, and just so much joy in the whole process.
Yeah.
Just always great food on the table.
Yeah.
Great conversations, unending coffee. And then you're talking, and then like, acha chalo 2 scene likh lete hai.
Beautiful.
So this kind of fursat, this kind of pleasure,
Yep.
which is why I say I really lucked out, by working with some amazing people who allowed me to feel comfortable in my own skin. And to have these people early on in your career is really important.
I can imagine.
Because it tells you that, what, you're going to be fine, yeah.
Yep.
That you're not terrible. You can have terrible days, but you are not terrible. And they validate your presence, by telling you that. And also very generous with their praises. Like if you've written something nice and they find it good, they're very generous. And because they are writers, they know how much it means to be told, just that कि क्या scene लिखा है यार. Like मजा आ गया. कल रात को मैंने पढ़ा, बहुत मजा आ गया. You are like walking on air the whole day then.
That's true.
Because you realize वो 4 पेज का scene लिखने के लिए आपको पता है ना what कश्मकश you went through to get there. And then someone else sees that part of that struggle and says, I see it and it was worth it.
Uh-huh.
It makes it worth it on those days when you're like, hey, yaar, 4 घंटे से लिखा और कुछ भी नहीं हुआ, and then you go back to that one. So I try to do this thing whenever I get some appreciation things. I try to save it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
To just read it on bad days.
Yeah.
When you feel, and sometimes bad days are bad weeks.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have bad months.
It's so true.
And very often you don't know how to pick yourself up from there.
Yeah.
No matter what all you try to tell yourself, no matter how much people around you try to pump you up, sometimes it's not enough.
Not easy. Yeah.
But then you only go back and you're like, अरे हाँ यार, मैंने 3 साल पहले एक अच्छा सीन लिखा था, तो मैं आज भी अच्छा सीन लिख सकती हूँ. It's just important to know that.
No, that's so true. And I think it's such a big takeaway when you're starting out in a field which is very subjective in its essence. And writing is not a very outcome-based role, right?
Yeah.
It's so fluid in its essence. It's you're building a life on paper. You're building people. You're building stories, right? Just knowing that there are people who can tell you that, hey, you got this. That it can make so much of a difference. I can totally understand that. And then just going through the tough days. Like, I've been through tough days as a writer where I feel like, did I make the right decision?
Yeah. Like me, right? Banker banna tha. You would have something else banna tha, right? So,
yeah. So it's crazy, right? Now that you're here, okay, now you mentioned that you have your ways to cope with these bad days, bad weeks, bad months, right? Let's dial back to any particular day you remember where you probably did not have this support system and where you were really thinking about, why are you here, or you were just questioning the choices you made. Were there any moments like that?
Oh yeah, lots of them. And I remember, and वो अभी भी है मुझ में, I feel that my desire to get out of that situation is usually what pushes me. Like if I'm at the bottom of the pit, like before I had any hope also that I could become like a full-time screenwriter. The thing that would push me towards getting there is just that I would look at how unhappy I am in my current situation, and I'll be like, this can't be my life. Like, this cannot be the time loop in which I'm going to allow myself to be stuck in. And the push theory in that case helped me more than the pull theory.
Okay.
So pushing, I want to exit this situation, was more inspiring for me on those days than I want the pull of having a full-time screenwriting career, you know. Because on some days, your dream is not enough to really push you out from that moment. Because वो इतना दूर है ना, कि on some days you're like, कि होने नहीं वाला है वो. It's like in cricket when if you are known that your target is 380 runs, in the first over you're like, it's not happening, man. Like, how am I going to get there, right? And then like Sachin would always say, like, take it ball by ball and take it over by over. Like, have targets for 3 overs, have targets for 5 overs, have targets for 1 over. Don't think about 50 overs. And then sometimes that used to seem so far that was not inspiring for me. Because I'll be like, वो पता नहीं होगा कि नहीं होगा यार. It's an illusion na at this point in time.
Yep.
But ये नहीं चाहिए मुझे. ये the unhappiness that I'm feeling right now na, this can't be my life. And I'm not going to allow myself to be here for long. And then that would help me to get up and say that, you know, like, no, like 1 page at a time. And like Phoebe Waller-Bridge also said, right, that you can fix a bad page of writing. You can't fix a blank page of writing, right?
Yep.
So write a bad scene, like write a bad line and write it. And कौन judge करने वाला है? I feel that writers को ना जितना harshly we judge ourselves ना, nobody judges us that harshly.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
We are constantly rejecting our ideas in our mind before even putting them on paper. We are judging ourselves by what we read on paper. We are judging ourselves by our successes or failures, comparing them to other people. And then someone from outside comes and tells you on a bad day that you're terrible. It crushes you because you have already been rejecting yourself every day.
Yeah.
So learning to be kinder to yourself, I think, is the biggest thing that you can do as a writer to yourself. That it's okay, like reject, write bad scenes. And I accepted very early on that, you know, whenever my career and anyone else's career will end, if I have done 20 things, they're not going to be 20 10 on 10 things.
Right.
There is going to be great stuff, there's going to be mediocre stuff, and there's going to be some really terrible stuff too.
Yep.
I accepted that. And I'm like, you know, ये सब जो reject मैं करती हूँ, अभी तो all my judgments are in my laptop. Someday these stories are going to get made and they're going to be out there in the world and people are going to slander it perhaps, and there's nothing I can do. वो acceptance मैंने अभी से I've tried to tell myself so that God forbid when that day comes, I'm not unprepared, you know.
Yeah, I understand.
So to just tell yourself ki it's okay to have those bad days.
Yep.
And your bad days are not you.
That's so true. And, you know, it's so fascinating to hear this from a person who just a few minutes back mentioned that, you know, when Satyanshu Singh got you on board with the AIB First Draft program, and you were the 9th person there, and you did not allow yourself to, you know, cut slack because, you know, you were going through the first few months of being a mother, right?
Yeah.
So you really took it on upon yourself to show Sati and Tanmay that you've got this, right?
Yeah.
On a breakthrough, right? You put that pressure, and on the other side, you're also saying that you have to be kind to yourself.
Yeah, you have to be, because I also feel I take on too much pressure, and which nobody has given me.
Yeah.
So ऐसे ही इतने pressure होते हैं in terms of like deadlines and logistics and all.
Yeah.
And then you put this up. So I'm still learning. I really think that I'm still very hard on myself. And right now I'm telling myself, but yeah, that's okay. I know that's not okay. So I'm learning to be like kinda, like it's okay, like zaruri nahi hai ki extension, if you need an extension, ask for the extension, you know. A couple of years ago, I would not.
Yeah.
I would kill myself, sit up, do whatever it takes, but not miss the commitment I made 2 months ago that on this day you're going to have the draft. And mostly I'm able to deliver. Like I said, I keep a buffer, right? I try to keep the buffer, but sometimes despite that, nahi hota hai, you know. So if I can figure it out on the 12th, ki 15th ki deadline is not going to get met, मैं पूछ लेती हूँ यार. I request, and mostly na, people understand.
Got it.
Unless even your producer is under immense pressure for some reason, mostly people get it. If you're going to be asking for a reasonable, if you're saying that, okay, I need 3 days more, they'll be like, ठीक है. If you're saying, yeah, I need 2 months more, they'll be like, hello, 1 second, let's talk, right? So you also have to be like reasonable. It's what you're asking for.
No, that's so true. No, I think there are so many takeaways for any young writer in this conversation, right? A couple of questions before we wrap this chat, right? Which has been so enriching in terms of the day-to-day of being a writer, right? What are the 3 things you directly wish to convey to writers who are just starting out or are in their early phases of their career right now?
The first thing I can think of is don't make your entire life and your personality about being a writer. It is a part of you and it should remain a part of you. Apart from personal growth that sometimes gets stunted because of that, it's also taking on too much pressure. Like I said, right, you can't pour out of an empty jug. So fill that life ka jug with things that are not just about writing. Otherwise, I've seen very often you look at everything as material. Aisa nahi hota. You know, you don't ask people backstories because you want a backstory for your character. You ask them because you're curious about people, you know. Everything else is a byproduct of that. So if you're a writer, don't make that your whole life and your whole personality, because there are going to be so many days when that part of your life is not working.
Yeah.
You need to have something else to go back home to. So whether it is your family or your relationships or another passion that you have or a side gig that you have, you should have something else that validates your existence apart from being a writer. Another thing is, like I did, till writing really starts paying you. I mean, this is a practical thing. Till writing starts paying you, have a side gig that pays you. It could be related to the job you just left. So you still have expertise in something. Like suppose you're a tech person who's left tech to become a writer. Continue something that allows you to have some kind of income, because most likely you're not going to have income in the beginning. People still feel that they are owed free writing. And at that time, you feel you need to have some work under your belt. So you're willing to do it for free. And everybody goes through it. So nobody should take guilt in that. I have done writing for free. Everyone who's out there today also has done writing for free.
Yeah.
I hope that changes.
Yeah, like it's so fascinating, right? People in the West are fighting for increase in pay, and here we're just still getting up from writing free of cost, right?
Yeah, and of course, nobody should write for free. And by free, I sometimes mean that it could be pittance.
Right.
Which is almost free. And I hope everybody gets so lucky that they never have to do it. But yeah, but effectively, I mean that your first gig is not going to pay you enough to sustain your life. So have a side gig. It will give you comfort, because it's a big pressure off you when you know that you're not counting on writing for your money, at least in the transition phase. And I feel be open to collaborations. A lot of times we are used to, and of course this depends on your personality, depends on your writing style, depends on what you're working on. But collaborations have always been very enriching for me, because especially if you're good enough, you're lucky enough to find good collaborators, it's amazing. Because, you might not be good at, say, plotting, but somebody else comes and just does plot aisa. And then that person is struggling with screenplay, but you're really comfortable with screenplay. There's so much that you learn from each other. And, it's like having a gym buddy. There are days when you're like, nahi jana hai yaar aaj. But your writing partner is like, no, yaar, let's do this. It just gets you out of bed. It keeps you excited. And it's just someone to share your wins and losses with.
Yeah, that's so true.
So it helps. If you can go out there and find a collaborator so that, when you're on your 10th rejection, at least you can go grab a beer together and like, acha, theek hai, chalo, we are going to fight this for another day and go find that 11th person still.
Yeah, that's so true. So to summarize, okay, so don't be hard on yourself.
Yeah.
Have a side gig when you're starting out. And the third one being?
Collaborators.
Be open to collaboration, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's super fascinating. Now, switching this question a little bit, 3 things you want to convey to producers, studio executives.
To producers, so I have worked at a production house, so I have perspective on production and producers, and I also know that they also want to just make that project that will work for everybody, right? But by just the sheer nature of the commerce versus art, very often writers and producers are seen as being people on the other sides of the line.
Yeah, the opposite sides of the line.
Yeah, but मुझे लगता है actually you're batting for the same team.
Yep.
You're effectively batting for the same team. One thing I would suggest is possibly that at least when a new project is coming to you, try to read it, like I said, for feedback also. Try to read it first for what it is, rather than what you are looking for, whatever might be your mandate.
Got it.
Right? So, for example, if you're getting a comedy drama in the family space, but you're looking for a family film but not in the comedy drama space. So, constantly reading it like, okay, if I take the comedy out of this, can I make this an intense drama?
Yeah.
Instead of reading it like that, just read it first for what it is. See if you like the character, see if you like the world, see what the writer is trying to say. And then maybe tell them how you think it can get better or more commercial or whatever that feedback might be. So yeah, first read things for what they are rather than what you are looking for. I have fortunately not been at the end of this stick, but I've seen it happen too often around me, especially for shows, that once the writer's work is done, they're pretty much forgotten. In the sense कि, shoot शुरू हो गई है, आपको पता ही नहीं चला, shoot start हो गई है ना? After party है, बुलाया नहीं किसी ने.
Oh, jeez. That's so unfortunate.
Screening hai, but you're getting to know from Instagram. So, I know it is hard. I know it's complicated. I know that there are big crews and slip-ups happen and all. But, don't forget the writers after writing is done. We were talking about how we work years to have that one premiere night, yeah.
Yep.
The least you can do is just be called for it. Try to remember us after our work is done.
Oh no, I really I feel for somebody who's been on the other side and not been called for their own screening. That will be so unfortunate.
Yeah, it's just that you're so excited for these little things because वो आपको एक ही दिन मिलता है यार. Most of your work happens so much in the andhera of that room.
Yep.
Battling your own demons. That one day you get to go out, blow dry your hair. No, वो भी नहीं मिला. So. That and, the more I go through these contracts and the more I go through the general relationship while writing, I realize if eventually 3-4 चीज़ें important होती है from a writer's perspective, from the producer. Basic respect as a person, being given the due credit, and being paid on time. I really feel this settles 90% of what writers really want.
Yeah, that's what
from their relationships with producers, right?
Yeah.
Just respect me, give me my credit, and pay me on time.
Yeah.
And of course, बाकी process का जो होता है वो होता है. I feel that even if these things are taken care of, now we'll just have a much happier, more conducive environment where we are not second guessing each other. We are not trying to outmaneuver each other. it just takes away all the energy that's negatively channeled towards unnecessary things.
Yep.
If these things are taken care of, I feel you will spend more time discussing your story than you will be spending discussing clauses and contracts.
Yeah. And it's this part of the conversation, it makes me wonder, how is it so unobvious that you have to spell it out, like, just give them bare basics, which is your money, credit, and respect, right?
Yeah.
So it's fascinating that we're still, fighting the rudimentary battles, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's expect that you're gonna be writing for peanuts in the beginning. Producers out there, especially the ones who have a little bit of traditional thinking, they probably don't abide by contracts, and they are not able to protect the basic clauses for writers, right? Even as simple as credits, right? And so to speak, that you're not invited to a screening.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we have a long way to go.
And this is a part of contracts, by the way, that your producer is not obligated to offer anything apart from the remuneration, including but not limited to premiere tickets, screening, this thing. So I understand that mostly you get invited, right?
Yep.
Unless really something has gone terribly wrong and those bridges are burnt and all.
Yeah.
But contractually, they want to still be clear on paper, because I'm just fascinated by what incidences must have triggered these clauses. Something would have gone so really wrong with maybe some years ago, there was a big fight between some writer and producer with regard to premiere tickets, right? Which must have led to producer saying, I am putting this in the contract. I just want to know how amusing that fight would have been for producers to say, "Ke nahi yaar, isko contract mein dal do."
No, that's so true. That's so true. And I think there, like, in this world, on the business side of things also, right? There are people who've been around for a while and they understand this, right? They understand the importance of respecting your collaborators, giving them due credit, and making sure they're invited and called for the right events that happen through the course of any project, right? But then there are people who are just entering this world, who are also still learning the ropes and figuring out their space. So for them, I think these may be things that without realizing they might have an oversight on this, right? So I'm glad that you were able to put these across together, and I hope that not just young writers are able to take a lot of bits of information which you shared, which deal with the day-to-day of being a writer, but also young execs are able to understand the world that writers are coming from. It's not an easy world. It takes a long time to write a project. And at the end of it, we're just expecting the bare minimum, really, So I'm just glad that we were able to articulate some of these things and put this across. I really appreciate that you took out the time to be here and have this chat. It's been such an enriching conversation. And I hope, like I said, people are able to take away the right things from it.
Yeah, it was great fun. Like, I felt like it's just catching up, like we catch up generally for coffee and then talk about all the things in the world that are crappy and all the things that work, and then go back home. This felt like that. So thank you. I really hope it helps anyone over there listening to things to just figure things out and take comfort in the fact that kisi ko kuch nahi pata hai. Everybody's winging it. It's fine if you're still winging it.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. Awesome. Thanks again, Arati.
Thank you.
For our listeners, please do check out our other episodes. We have variety of guests from media. I hope you get to learn from them as well.